next storyteller is a long-standing friend of comedy, and he's been a writer for Good News Week, and he's been a writer for everything. Anyway, I'll let him tell you a little bit more about another side of him. Please welcome to the stage the very funny Dave Bloustien.
Hello. So what I'm going to tell you about is, it does fit the theme, but that might not become apparent at first. Basically, it's about the time that I ended up in court over an offensive joke that I told. This is true. Basically, I was accused. I was accused of telling a joke that they said their argument was for not paying me for this gig, that I was a comedian, therefore it was implied in the contract that I would be funny. I was not funny, therefore I was in breach of contract. This is completely true. And the joke I told, I was doing a lot of political comedy at the time, and the joke I told was, I was talking about racism in Australia. And I said the thing about racism in Australia is it's usually quite easy to spot. In fact, sometimes if you're in Cronulla, they send you a text message. It's not hilarious, but it's not offensive. You know, like, to actually be offended by that, I think you'd have to be a racist from Cronulla who really wanted an iPhone but just couldn't get your hands on a white one. And you need a drum kit and a cymbal. That would really make my day. So, I feel like I'm on play school. The thing is that you've derailed my thoughts now. So yes, this joke that they said was, now admittedly it was a high school formal, okay, in Cronulla. But it was one of those things where you just knew from the beginning that everything was wrong with this gig. Like, I didn't have the experience, I was fairly new, I didn't have the experience to know just how bad this gig was going to be, but little clues started happening along the way. Like when I went to the office of the event management company, and I turned up and there's nobody there, right? There's these glass doors that are locked, this big front desk, and it's empty, and I'm knocking on the door, ringing the bell, nothing. I'm just about to go, this head pops up from behind the desk, and it's the guy who had booked me, the guy who's the CEO of this company, this guy called Sam, right? And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry," opens the door, says, it's really sorry, Dave. How you doing? Nice to meet you. Thing is, I just fired my graphic designer, and he won't leave me alone, right? He was hiding. He was hiding behind his desk in case I was somebody that he had fired. Now, that should have set off some alarm bells on any normal human being, but part of me was going, that's really appalling. The other part of me was going, I would never have thought of that. Like, I'm really good at hide and seek. It would never. I used to be brilliant at it. I used to hide, you know, up corridors, up near the ceiling. I used to hide in air vents. I had this brilliant hiding spot I used to love, where I would pull out. I had one of those beds with a trundle, you know, and I'd pull out the trundle bed, squish down into the mattress, and then just slowly push the trundle back under the bed, which was brilliant because if you look under the bed, you don't see me, you just see the foam mattress, you know. And the only problem being you physically need someone outside the bed to pull the trundle back out. So long after my sister had given up and gone off to watch TV, I was still trapped in there going, help! But, it was one of those things where just little things, everything was wrong there. I told them how you needed basic sound and lighting, you know, and they'd gone, oh, yeah, and ignored me. I thought I was going to MC the event, which would make sense for a comedian, but no, they had a hip-hop MC, and they wanted me to do some, like, 2 20-minute sets while the meals were being served. I went to meet the formal committee, and they were telling me all these great things I should make fun of, like, you know, their pedophile headmaster, and how several of the girls had got pregnant in the, like, I'm going to make fun of that, right? So everything was going wrong. I get to the day, and it's just, it looks beautiful, but again, comedian, well out of place. I try to get out of the gig. I say that, you know, you've got this beautiful event planned. I'm just going to screw things up, including a comedian. You know, just go on, don't pay me, we'll forget about it. The guy has grabbed me and looked me in the eyes, given me one of the weirdest pieces of comedy advice I've ever received in my life, right? He said, go on, Dave, why don't you just do, like, funny email addresses? You know, like bumbum@poopooweewee.com. Like you did at school. Thinking, oh, I'm pretty sure we went to different schools. I don't think my school had a remedial personal development class, you know. And anyway, so the gig is bad. People are basically ignoring me, and so I start kind of loosening up and going, I'll just do, you know, whatever I want. So I start doing my set from clubs, and without even thinking, I say, oh, here's something some of you might relate to. I've just had a baby. Boom, right? The room shuts down. Terror, like, just it gets angry and unpleasant, and I slink off stage and say, look, I'm really sorry. I told you this was a bad idea. I knew I wasn't right for this gig. I think we should just cut it, quit while we're vaguely ahead. And he goes, oh no, I booked you for 2 sets, and sends me straight back out again, right? So everything about this gig had been horrendous. And at the end of it, in the full knowledge that things had not gone to plan, I still sent off the invoice naively, heard nothing back for ages, sent off another one, heard nothing, sent him another email saying, look, I know things didn't go how we thought. Here's a list of suggestions of what I would do next time if you really want to make comedy part of your event. Point 1 was, don't hire me. I did give a list of acts I thought might be more appropriate, and invoiced him for a fraction of my fee. Like the knowledge that he wasn't going to pay, but saying, look, let's just call it even. I've certainly done a lot of work for you. You employed me for something specific, which I did, and it hasn't turned out. Nothing, right? So eventually I take it to small claims court. He gets a hand-delivered summons, right, from a lawyer. No response. So I win by default. I've technically won the case, right? But he just doesn't acknowledge that either. Won't pay up. I sent, get a garnishee order where you take money directly from their account, but to get their account details you have to ask them. Nothing, right? So there's nothing I can do. And I'm just about to employ a sheriff, which is like a last resort, which sounds awesome to me. I just imagine this big guy on a horse knocking on the door. There's nobody there. They're hiding. But again, all the sheriff can really do, actually, is if they go in there, is take everything out of their office and sell it and then pay you with the proceeds. But they can't take anything needed for the running of their business. And I don't think there's much call on eBay for a box of ethics. So it's dragging out, but I'm just about to kind of start involving the authorities. And I get this letter from their lawyer saying that they didn't receive the hand-delivered note summons. They weren't aware of the court case, but if they had been, not only would they win on the grounds that I was not funny, but they would countersue due to the incalculable damages that I've caused to their company, and do plan to do this, which I don't understand how you sue for incalculable damages. It just seems to be a basic question of maths to me. We sue you for incalculable damages. No sense at all. So it ends up going back to court, and I'm really panicking now because I'm thinking it's all been flipped on its head. Suddenly I'm the defendant. This is going to be horrendous, and we get to the court date, sit through the whole. He hasn't turned up, but his lawyer has turned up, and we were joking about it because he also finds it kind of amusing, and sit through the whole day waiting to be called up. We don't get called up. Eventually, they open a second courtroom. They have a spare judge in case someone blows a gavel or something. And we go down to this little room. This judge has this massive pile of documentation, all the correspondence that's built up. Because this has been going on for a year and a half now at this point, right? A year and a half to not get paid for a gig is not unusual in Sydney. But this is the financial crisis. I just had a kid, so I was quite, I needed the money. I was quite desperate. There's not a lot of money in comedy. It's kind of gone on that the judge is looking through these leaves with all the enthusiasm of like a shark at a spinach festival, and he eventually looks up at me, kind of resigned, and says, "Do you have anything to add?" And I'm so furious. This has built up for so much time. I really want to stand up and say, "Yes, I've actually prepared like a 15-page statement, by the way, explaining why I think I could be legally considered funny. The idea has really appealed to me that I might get a show out of this. And so I put in like reviews, I put in like philosophical arguments, I put in all sorts of stuff. And I want to say, yes, I have 15 pages of that, right here. For a start, I've been doing this for a long time now, 5 years back then. I've been doing this for 5 years now, and even I don't think I could tell you definitively what constitutes funny, right? But that wasn't part of the agreement. The agreement was I would perform at this event and that I would get paid for it. I've done the work required. I gave advice as to why this shouldn't, as to why this might not go according to plan, and that was ignored. I was brought in as the expert, and that was ignored. And hath not a comedian ears, eyes, organs, feelings? If you heckle us, do we not bleed? Right? I want to kind of lambast him with this stuff, but I don't. I sort of stand up and say, look, I have nothing to add. I think it's all there in the brief. Thank you, Your Honour, and sit down. So he turns to the lawyer for this guy, Sam, and says, do you have anything to add? And I think, oh, God, right, this is where it all comes down. This is where traditionally you bring in the witnesses, and there's going to be like this long line of heavily pregnant teenagers outside that door going, he ruined my life, right? I'm terrified. And the lawyer stands up. This is the person, right? This is the guy who has ignored all documentation, who lost the case because they had not participated, had then got it overturned, and has still not responded to any documentation from me the whole way through this court case. Stands up And I'm thinking, this is where the damning argument comes and says, oh, I think we've taken this as far as we can, Your Honour. And sits down too, right? They have no defence. They have no... They had no case the whole time. And that's when it clicks, oh my God, he hasn't paid you either. Right? And I win the case. I win for the $2,000, which is how much I had charged for the event, which at the time was my kind of like, I don't want to do it price. Like, you know, if I have to sell my dignity to be for this much money, he's not going to hire me. And he's gone, oh, the DJ charges like 3 times that. Oh, but, you know, and I realised that this whole time it was just this massive bluff that dragged out for 2 years. And I've got no idea why someone would drag a bluff out for 2 years until I try and get the order to get paid and realise they've now gone insolvent because they owe the Salvation Army $10,000 for hall hire. Of all the people to rip off, why the ones who help the homeless? And so that was where I got pipped to the post. And if you're wondering who this guy Sam was, he actually did make the papers the end of last year. I don't know if you remember a company called Yours Group. The guy Samir Kapoor went on the run after fleecing several high schools in Sydney of tens of thousands of dollars and then not organising their high school formals. So, although I didn't get any financial reward out of it, apart from ticket sales to the show where I talk about it, I do feel like I won the moral victory there. So yeah, thanks very much.